Welcome to episode 5 of Overdrive. My name is David Fleming, and on this episode, we have some interesting topics. First, we'll check in with a few of our Buick GMC trainers who got an early look at the 2018 GMC Terrain. Later in the episode, we will talk to the top 3 finalists in our Crazy Story contest. Many of you may remember I put a post on the Hub on Facebook a few weeks ago asking for stories about the craziest thing you've seen while traveling for work. Well, the submissions are in, and later in the show, we'll find out who submitted the wildest, most entertaining stories. The arrival of the 2018 GMC Terrain to our dealerships is still a ways off, but I had the opportunity to talk to a few of our Buick GMC trainers who took an early look at the redesigned Terrain. Gentlemen, would you mind introducing yourselves for our listeners?
Good morning. This is Dan Powell. My territory, Southeast Michigan, western side of Michigan a little bit.
Okay, this is Dan DesEnfants, Buick and GMC trainer from northern Michigan.
Hey everybody, good morning. It's Andrew Lawrence down in Indianapolis, Indiana, Buick and GMC product trainer. Just want to welcome you guys to the podcast for the 2018 GMC Terrain. Dan DesEnfants, Dan Powell, and I had the opportunity to go up to the Milford Proving Grounds last Thursday and take a look at the 18 Terrain with some of the brand team. It's a wonderful vehicle. We're really excited to share this information with you guys and catch everybody up to speed.
So my first question regarding the 2018 GMC Terrain, what did you think about the overall size change for the redesign? And were there any major design changes that initially caught your eye?
Yeah, so the overall size change has come down about 3 inches. The wheelbase has come down shortly as well, just a little bit, not much. It's roughly the size of the Envision. It's definitely been rounded off. It's not nearly as boxy as what it was the previous generation. Looks really good. It's sitting on the global Delta SUV architecture, which is the same thing the Envision's sitting on. I know we have a lot more to talk about with the design.
All right. Next thing I want to talk about, the headlamps and tail lamps. Headlamps and tail lamps can make or break anyone's perception of the styling of a vehicle. It's a very crucial element as far as styling goes. Dan Powell, what kind of enhancements have been made to the headlamps and tail lamps, and what do you think about how they look?
There's a bunch of stuff, but some of the things that really jumped out was not only from the front and rear, but the C-shaped LED daytime running lights, which is actually standard on all models. HID headlights, standard on all models. Now, when you get up into Denali, those become LED headlights. Even some of the accents would be a little badge for Terrain right inside the headlight assembly itself. GMC logo as well. And then once you get up into Denali, with the LED, there's going to be just a little LED logo in there as well. Fog light standard on SLT and Denali, and then also in the back, LED taillights, but the C shape from the front also carries to the rear taillights as well.
Aside from the headlamps being drastically different for the new generation Terrain, are there any other notable front-end enhancements?
I think that both the Dans will agree that everybody at the dealership is already calling this the baby Acadia. So a lot of the same look is going into the Terrain that you're going to see with the new body style launch of the Acadia. So all the way around, you'll have unique grills for every trim level, which is nice. So you get kind of a black finish with the SLEs. We'll bump you up to a chrome look for the SLT. And then, of course, the Denali's got the unique, almost kind of three-dimensional grill. Looks really good. I love in the SRG for the Terrain at the beginning. It says an unapologetic front end. You know, it just screams "get out of my way," basically. All the way around, you'll have the cladding at the bottom for the SLE and SLT. So just like the Acadia again. And of course, when you go up to the Denali, we'll do body color top to bottom, and they'll throw the Denali nice chrome badging at the bottom. Again, just like the Acadia, with the logos on the side there. Roof racks is much like the front grille itself. So we're going to see a black matted out roof rack up top for SL and SLE, and then we'll transition to, which is kind of different this year, we're going to go satin on the SLT finish and then a chrome finish for the Denali up top. But all the way around, it looks spectacular. They really did a good job. They stepped up the game for this one. It really helps stay competitive in the marketplace.
Moving from the exterior to the interior, what was one of the new features inside the 2018 GMC Terrain that stood out for you the most?
One of the things that jumped out to me immediately, because I actually just picked up my third Terrain, and I wished it had this feature, and it's the front full flat seat. There's been so many times needed to tow maybe a little bit of lumber home, and it was a little more difficult with the full flat seat. That was one of the things that jumped out with me. The middle seat, unfortunately, they took the adjustability, the fore and aft or the flex seating out of that, but it shouldn't be an issue for most people. I think Dave Cubit's, I think he's 6'5", and he sat in the back. Yeah, he had to turn his head a little bit, so we should be good for somebody 6'2", 6'3" in the back of that vehicle. But it was definitely the full flat seat for me.
Yeah, as simple as one of the features I thought that was pretty cool was on the center console, the cup holders are now side by side, which kind of minimizes any confusion with everybody's drinks and that sort of thing. One of the other really cool improvements I thought was now the rear seat have standard vents on the back of the console for the HVAC, which was a point of concern on the past generation. So nice improvements.
I'd probably have to say the new electronic precision shifter up front. I'm sure we've all seen pictures of it by now. We're going to a push button format. So park will be a push button, neutral will be push button, and then the range selector will be a push button as well. You'll be able to select plus or minus for that. And then in between those buttons, which is a total of 5, so at the 2 position, you're going to have a pull tab for reverse, and then basically at the 4 position, you'll have a pull tab for drive. And those buttons really feel just like the tabs we have for rolling up and down our windows. They're the same size and everything. They are backlit, which is nice. We had the opportunity, we asked them probably a million questions about how they function. And at one point, Jeff just said, get in and do it. Start it up and try it. And I'd have to say that it's seamless. Going from reverse to drive to reverse is just as fast as you're shifting a regular shifter. You don't have to pull and hold the tabs. You don't have to push park and hold it down. It's really as simple as that. I think we all had the opportunity to play with it, and I think we were really surprised in how easily it functioned.
Awesome. What about radios? What kind of radio offerings are we going to have in the new Terrain? Andrew, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so we're going to offer the 7-inch radio standard SL, SLE. We will have the 8-inch available SLE. It's an optional upgrade. Then you'll see 8-inch standard for SLT Denali. There's a lot of news that'll be launched on this head unit, TBD, but some of the stuff we can share with you is the obvious. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, we'll have App Dropper, Seat Reminder, Teen Driver, of course. Unfortunately, the CD player has been deleted, so we'll probably get a little backlash from that. But the nice thing is the previous generation, the last year and a half of that, there hasn't been a CD player anyways, so... But overall, infotainment looks good. It's got a different look to it, but again, more announcements to come for that.
In the time between recording this podcast and editing it, Cadillac has announced the release of their new Infotainment 3.0. This is something that will be making its way into several 2017 half-model year Cadillac CTSs. I find it funny that Andrew can't talk about the new infotainment changes on the GMC Terrain for 18 model year, yet Cadillac has just announced this new system like a week and a half later. Take from that what you will. I'm not saying anything either way. Anyway, back to the podcast. Awesome. My next question, outside of infotainment, what types of technologies are you glad to see that they added to the new Terrain? Dan Powell, you want to take this one?
Yeah, just one of the things that I noticed was wireless charging, and good to see that. Which is, well, actually, it's a Denali only, and so they switched from Pioneer to Bose, so 7-speaker Bose system, if equipped.
Now, I'm curious about the size of the wireless charging pad. Can you give us an idea of how large it is? Is it going to accommodate an iPhone 7 Plus or one of your Galaxy Notes?
I believe it was identical to lacrosse. And Andrew, didn't it look the same to you guys?
Yeah, it was lacrosse size.
Okay, moving on. As far as utility is concerned, are there any new functionalities that have been added to the Terrain?
Something that I thought was, a really nice improvement, I guess, is now the second row folds flatter than the previous generation. It actually folds down to approximately 4 degrees incline versus the old car, which was actually measured at 24 degrees. So we're going to get a much flatter load surface, if you will, or cargo area, much like Acadia. And the other thing that's pretty neat is the Terrain is going to have the levers in the back cargo area to fold that second row seat, similar to Envision as well. Or I should say, similar to Acadia.
So you've gotten us up to speed on the new Bose audio system and the new infotainment. What types of entertainment options will be available to those that are seated in the second row?
So great technology on the front seat, and then we're going to transition that to the back seat as well. I remember only seeing the last generation Terrains with rear seat entertainment at the auto shows. I don't think I ever saw one at any of my dealerships. One of the interesting things they shared with us is they found that more people have pets in the back seats than kids. So we asked about rear seat DVD, and they said that late availability, we will offer rear seat headrest DVDs as an accessory. So much like we've offered in the past, they'll fit to the headrest. Right at launch, though, of course, we'll have the tablet holders that'll mount to the headrest. Those will be an accessory as well. You can pick up at the dealership. They fit all sizes and shapes for the tablet. So for those customers, maybe have one kid or just two kids and they can get by with a Terrain-sized vehicle, we will offer that option for them this year. So I was pretty excited about that. Additionally, they added a full panel sunroof, which is nice, just like the Envision. I remember the first time my daughter got into the backseat of the Envision demo we had, and she didn't care that there wasn't DVD. She just looked up and she could see everything. It was great. And of course, everybody likes front heated seats. We all want to be comfortable in all positions. So Denali only for the Terrain this year will offer rear heated seats. So everybody's comfortable, everybody's connected. It's great.
Good deal. Well, Dan Powell, do you want to tell us a little bit about the hands-free power liftgate on the new Terrain?
Yeah. So with the the current Terrain, it was for us in our lineup. It was the first one with a programmable liftgate. So of course that carries over into the 2018. The hands-free, again, right there for the same as Envision, is going to be Denali only. And if we're used to the sensor where the Envision's at, it's in the exact same spot on the Acadia. So they're not a new spot to have to relearn, thankfully, for the hands-free liftgate. Again, Denali only.
Thanks, Dan. Now on to something a little more exciting. Let's talk about the powertrain offerings that will be available in the new 2018 Terrain. Andrew, what can you tell us about that?
So, all new powertrains for 2018 for the Terrain. We're going to get a standard 1.5 liter with a 9-speed across the board until you get to Denali, which is going to have a standard 2-liter turbo. The only engine offering in the Denali will be the 2-liter turbo. All the other trim levels, SLE and SLT, will have the optional 1.6-liter diesel. Now, the diesel will feature, and the 1.5 and the 2-liter will all feature, start-stop technology, and they all will have active grille shutters as well. You will only find the diesel available for SLE and SLT as well.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that we're putting the 1.6-liter diesel in the Terrain. I know it's also going in the Equinox too, but that's really exciting. I'm anxious to see what kind of economy numbers you can get out of that diesel in our crossovers. That'll be interesting to see. Dan DesEnfants, you want to talk a little bit more about that diesel offering?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of excited about this, to be honest with you. I guess the proof will be in the pudding when we see how people accept it or not. But At the start of production, it will be available along with the 2-liter turbo. As Andrew might have stated earlier, the 1.5 gas engine will be a later launch. But the diesel will be putting out roughly 136 horsepower, 240 pound-feet of torque. It will include a depth gauge. As far as the depth tank location, that's to be determined. The fill for the depth fluid will be at the fuel door, much like Canyon.
Now that we offer the 1.6 diesel in the Terrain, I'm anxious to see what the towing figures look like. Would one of you mind talking about the towing capability of the new 18 Terrain?
Yeah, sure. With both 1.5, 1.6, they come in at 1,500 pounds, which, from the Envision, that's, we kind of, are used to seeing the 1,500 pounds. But one of the things Jeff talked about was they of course, got rid of the V6. So the 2-liter will be our towing engine if somebody wants to pull something. The thing is, they have to get the tow package. So with the tow package, it's going to come with larger brakes, increased cooling. That way they can do the 3,500 pounds. So the 2-liter in the Envision that doesn't have that available. So that's what he said they gave us, or gave the customers that want to pull something. Diesel, you think right out of the gate, oh man, that's going to be a pulling engine, but they said it's calibrated for efficiency, so it's again coming in at 1,500 pounds.
I think it's important to mention too, like Dan, you said, you go in a couple of, it's what you're used to, right? I mean, it's 1,500 pounds with a 4-cylinder, the current generation of 3,500 with the V6. So I think that we're giving people exactly what they're used to. I think that we're just going to have to kind of combat the no V6 and convert people over to the 2-liter turbo now. So it'll be a good talking point moving forward.
Well, we've covered engines, we've covered transmissions, we've talked about towing. What about drivetrain? What kind of drivetrain configurations will be available on the 18 Terrain?
So much like previous generation, we will offer front and all-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive will be available in SL. Front-wheel drive is available across the board. All-wheel drive is available in everything but the SL model. We will not call this a twin clutch system, but it will be selectable, which is nice. So your front-wheel drive, you'll have a normal mode, a snow mode, and of course, if equipped, you'll have a tow haul mode, which is good. And then of course, all-wheel drive, a little different with the labeling here. You're going to see a 2x4, a 4x4, an off-road, and then again, if equipped with the tow haul mode. So we like seeing the selectability there. It's important to keep up with this segment with this feature. I think it was a big turn on for Acadia customers coming over to the new body 17. So we're excited to see in the 18 Terrain.
All right. Now, getting away from the more technical stuff now, I do want to talk about safety features. What types of new safety tech are we going to find on the new Terrain?
So similar to what we saw with the last generation, we're going to give you the blind spot, the lane change, rear cross traffic, backup cameras, rear park assist. But new enhancements that I think we've all been waiting for, and we really fall in love with the Denali for the Acadia for 17, was the surround vision camera. So much like the Acadia, we'll have the cameras underneath the side mirrors, and then we'll have one in the front directly underneath the emblem, and then we'll utilize the backup camera as well. I had this when I had the Envision demo, and it saved me a number of times, especially at gas stations, get around those pylons. What a great feature. Safety Alert C is making its way to the Terrain for 2018. I'm excited about that. I think we find a lot of people find the beeps annoying, so they will shut off those safety features, and that's exactly what we don't want them to do. So implementing the Safety Alert C then for 2018 is a huge advantage. It's an industry exclusive feature. Nobody else offers it out there. So it's something that we'll really talk about during this training. And of course, Lane Keep Assist has made its way to the Terrain for 18. We all know how that functions. It's going to give you those subtle pulls to keep you back into your lane. We had some question about the aggressiveness of it. They're going to have to get back to us on that. We're assuming it's going to be pretty similar to what we see in the Envision versus what we see in the Sierra. So all great additions on top of the already phenomenal suite of safety technologies we offer in the generation right now.
Is there anything else?
Yeah. I was going to I was just going back through my notes. So, six airbags. Sorry, thought I had a little bit more than that, but yeah, six airbags.
Yeah, we did. I think the one you had written down, Powell, that I didn't say was we will have forward automatic braking. We'll have the camera-based system. We will not call this pedestrian braking with low-speed braking. They're simply calling it low-speed automatic braking. Again, camera-based system. That'll be brand new for us. So we will have automatic braking, camera-based, low-speed.
Great. Well, guys, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to give us all the information that you were able to pick up during your early crawl through on the 2018 GMC Terrain. The last thing I want to do is just kind of get your final thought. So if you wouldn't mind, just one by one running through what stood out most. Do you feel that this vehicle is going to be a success? Just kind of share your perception of the new Terrain.
As far as wrapping this up on my end, I think it's going to be a home run. Again, I'm on my third one. The shorter wheelbase, the shorter overall, I think is a good thing. It's the turning radius on the current one is a little bit desired. So I really do think this vehicle is just going to be a home run for us.
Just after reviewing my notes here a little bit, I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that were mentioned earlier, and that the overall length of the vehicle is about 3 inches shorter, and the wheelbase is shorter as well, like Dan said. But the interior volume and cargo area of the car is very similar to the outgoing model. That tells us that the overall length is basically shorter overhangs, which kind of makes the car look a little bit more modern to me. As far as the rear seat goes, I think either Dan or Andrew mentioned earlier that it's no longer a smart slide setup, meaning it's not movable, but there was still all kinds of leg room, knee room kind of thing for even larger adults. So very, very comfortable, and we think that that's pretty important, obviously. Lastly, I wanted to mention that I don't think was covered here is that the rear cargo floor lifts to reveal a pretty decent-sized additional storage area below the floor. And if I remember correctly, it was about 3 cubic feet.
Okay,
so, anywho, very cool car, and I think it is going to be a home run, like Dan said.
Yeah, I'll wrap things up with, when I initially saw the vehicle, I watched the Facebook reveal. I think we all kind of took a deep breath when we saw that back window between the pillars back there, and how small it was. We were all kind of hesitant on it, and the visibility, of course. So one of the things I wanted to do was challenge myself to get in the vehicle and check for blind spots. And when I sat in the driver's seat and I looked over my shoulder, the window is, it looks like it's 2 inches top to bottom, and about 12 inches wide. And I thought, wow, all right, can't see much. But, we have to come to rely on a lot of the safety technologies we've implemented in these vehicles. But I remember getting off the bus at the proving grounds and getting back in my 13 Acadia and looking over my right shoulder, and I said, there might as well not be a third window in this vehicle because of headrest obstructions, a passenger sitting there. You can't really see anything out of that window anyways. You could actually see more out of the 18 Terrain than my 13 Acadia. So I think customers will be hesitant at first, and once they sit in the vehicle and sit in the vehicle that they own and currently drive, I think they'll notice that it really isn't that big of a deal. I mean, the design on the exterior is phenomenal, extremely sporty, and again, we have to stay competitive in this segment. So overall, great. As the guy said, we're not losing cargo inside, and the technology makes up for everything. Long awaited. So good job.
A special thanks to Dan Powell, Dan DesEnfants, and Andrew Lawrence. Guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to help me record this. It is much appreciated. In our next segment, we'll be hearing a few stories from trainers about the craziest things they've seen on the road. Obviously, as trainers, we spend a lot of time on the road away from home. Well, I wanted to do something a little different for this episode, so I put a post on the Trainer Hub. I wanted to know, what's the craziest thing that you've seen while traveling for work? I've gotten several submissions and listened to all of them, and I wanted to include the top 3 stories here on the podcast. So, coming in at number 3.
Okay. I'm Doug Fletcher. I'm Buick GMC for Memphis, Tyler, New Orleans. I've been with the company, it'll be 2 years in May 11th. So, part of my territory is northern Louisiana, the I-20 corridor going from Jackson, Mississippi all the way into northeast Texas. And at the first of last year, the first of 2016, they had record-breaking floods. Not just for locally, but like nationally. It was pretty impressive. And me being who I am, I was trying to get to my next dealership. Well, as I was driving along I-20, traffic literally came to a complete stop. And I started just basically crawling down the interstate. And I actually got out of the car and started talking to some of the truck drivers. I'm like, oh yeah, there's been some flooding and they shut down part of I-20. Well, I was bound to determine at that point not to expect my dealership to try to get to the hotel in Shreveport. Well, I finally got diverted off of I-20, and I had my laptop, my phone, and my iPad, and I keyword looked. So I started taking all these back roads in northern Louisiana, and it took me a solid 3 hours to go forward, or actually westbound, maybe 3 or 4 miles. I ended up in a small town called Mendon, where there's 3 hotels and a couple seedier pay-by-the-hour joints, and every single hotel was full. I mean, everywhere. I literally could not get in, and it came down to the point to where I was getting kind of nervous because my only other option at my point, that I knew at that point, was to sleep in my car. So I finally go back to the Holiday Inn there, and I'm talking to the general manager. I'm like, dude, listen, I got to have somewhere to stay. And he hands me a slip of paper, and it says that there's a shelter open at the First Baptist Church gym about 2 miles up the road. And I look, I'm like, dude, you've got to be kidding me. He said it's the only thing that I know to do for you. So I put my stuff back in my car and drive up to the shelter. We'll drive to the church. And they said, well, we have food ready, and we're waiting on the cots and blankets. I'm like, okay. A little did I know that the blankets actually came from the prison. So the sheriff shows up with a van full of army cots that they use for disaster relief normally, and fresh prison blankets. They were still in the bag, sealed. So I was one of the first people there, and I was able to help set up all these cots and blankets, but I ended up sleeping that night in the First Baptist Church gym, seeking shelter. And in all honesty, it's one of the better night sleeps I had while I've been on the road.
That's kind of interesting. One of the best night's sleep that you've ever gotten while out on the road in a cot with prison sheets. Nice. So that was our third place story from Doug Fletcher. Our second place story now comes to us from...
All right, Fielding Snyder, Chevrolet product trainer here in the North Central area in Des Moines, Iowa, and South Dakota. So, which in South Dakota, you don't see a whole lot, but when you do see something, it's quite a sight to see. And one day when I was heading back from Rapid City on 90, I was going to head over to Winter, South Dakota, which you have to get off 90 on. I don't even remember what highway road it is, 183 maybe, but it's in the middle of nowhere. There's not much going on. And so I'm driving on this road, and it's hilly, but not steep hilly by any means. And I'm having fun in my Chevrolet Cruze Limited, seeing going around the curves and the hills and things like that, not paying attention. And there was this long, gently sloping hill that gradually went up. And as I crested that hill, what was on the other side took me by surprise, because there was a crop duster that was coming out of the field, and his wheels were, 5 foot off the highway. And so, of course, it happened so fast. He went by. I could see him turn his head, and I'm looking right there at him. He goes whizzing by, and I stopped the car. I'm like, holy moly, that was something else. So I stop and I pull into the field road right there, and I get my phone out because I'm going to take some pictures. And he comes back around, and he goes right over the top of me. And, of course, he knows I'm there. Then he cranks it around. Now he's showing off is what he's doing. So he has the smoke, when he releases the smoke, and he's doing all the acrobatic maneuvers, and he's just going at it. And then he goes down parallels the field. So he's coming up parallel to where he was or where I was standing, and comes right over the top. I mean, I was ducking as he came over and thinking that he's a little bit low.
That is crazy. Your own personal little air show on your way to your dealer visit. I'm jealous. Anyway, I'm sure a lot of you probably rolled your eyes when you heard Fielding say that the plane passed over at an altitude of 5 feet, thinking it was an exaggeration. It's not. I saw the photos. It's legit. It was probably right at about 5 feet, and it is crazy. So we want you to get the full effect. We'll be posting that photo of the plane passing over at such a low altitude, along with Doug Fletcher's photos of the cot that he slept on with the prison sheets in the gym to avoid the flooding, on the podcast post on our WordPress page. So you should be able to pull up the description for the podcast on your mobile device and see these photos, just so you believe that they are true and did happen and there weren't any exaggerations. Anyway, episode 6 is where you're going to hear our first place story. I hate to do such a cliffhanger, but our number one story comes to us from a very seasoned trainer, and it is extremely exciting. So stay tuned for the continuation of our craziest things you've ever seen on the road segment in episode 6. Until next time.